Okay, greetings everyone. Happy Saturday night to you. It is storming here where I live in Florida, in the North Palm Beach area. So let's adjust it. Hope all is well with you. Hope you had a good week. I have absolutely loved interacting with you. And let me just see about this. I can maybe turn this get a little bit better light for us here. Tried it before. If I move, maybe if I actually move, let's see. Okay, let's try that. Okay. Okay, a little bit. Let me put this light on. Get a little better light. Okay. All righty. Okay, here we go. So again, happy Saturday night. Finishing up week 2 in general psychology, or what I sometimes call Psych 101. As I said, I've absolutely enjoyed the interaction and discussions with everyone. Two very good topics this week. Let me see if I can phone. That might be one of you texting me. I don't know. Okay, no, it's not one. Sometimes I get text. I obviously put my phone away when I'm doing a class live, but sometimes I'll get a text from one of you, my students, wanting to know the address or what have you, which is in the announcements. And if you are watching this video, you have seen that, or if you're on here, no one is with me yet, unfortunately, so I can't reach out live to anyone and ask how your week is going. Nonetheless, we'll get right into it here. So we talked about this week in our discussions. We had the what some people call the gorilla, what some people call the bear in the video, and when we're focused on one particular thing, it's very easy to miss something that we're not focusing on, something that would seemingly be very obvious. And if you have done the exercise, many of you have and posted, you didn't see the bear at all. Some kind of did, but didn't pay much attention, or some thought something was wrong, and subsequently found out what that was. So a lot of good discussion on that, just in terms of how that could be a bad thing or a good thing. That could be a bad thing because you might miss something if you're concentrating on something else. You might miss a very important event that's going around, or a detail. But and some of you brought this up in the discussion, which I was very impressed to see, that we can let other things distract us and get us away from our goal very easily. And this happens in life all too often. We have people make a living doing motivational talks and workshops on the importance of setting goals and sort of keeping our nose to the grindstone, if you will, to pursue that goal or achieve that goal. I made a comment that when you're working on anything, like you've taken on additional responsibilities. Most of you are what we'd call adults. Some of you are even have families, kids, obligations with church and your jobs. So to take on additional responsibility of taking college courses and pursuing a college degree is a lot. And I will say that my experience in adult students, college students, typically take on even more things with family, more responsibilities, and more responsibilities with at work and with church. They always kind of fill in and pick up other people's slack, if you will. And here they have classes to take themselves. So I say all that to say that, especially taking classes online, it's very easy to get distracted as you even look up journal articles and research other ideas on attention, and maybe even attention deficit disorder, and things like that. Very easy to get lost in Facebook and YouTube and Google, so that before you know it, 2.5 hours have gone by and you haven't finished the paper that you were supposedly working on. I'm guilty of that myself. I've done that as a student as well. So very important to not get distracted and not see the the bear, if you will, right in front of you. Um, so so anyway, there's good and bad to that, but it's just an interesting phenomenon. The other thing that we talked about this week is also very interesting, which is the debate or argument or whatever we want to call it between dualism and monoism. And is our brain separate from our mind? Is our brain separate from our body? And probably, like most Christians, uh, people reported in this discussion to be dualists. In other words, they believe that we have a body and a spirit. So, in essence, that our mind is separate from our body. Someone even early on made a good. I like to, they brought in as the conversation goes, Descartes, who said, I think, therefore I am. He went through a whole um, long. I read it years ago. How he came to the conclusion that he set up to philosophically prove, if you will, and there's no real philosophical proofs, but to philosophically discern whether or not he actually existed, or was he just someone's thought. Let me see. This might be one of you calling in. Let me just see. Dr. Nicholas here. I'm sorry. Uh-huh. I shouldn't do that. Are you clicking on the link from the announcements? That doesn't make sense because I invited you. That's an invitation that's in the announcements. I don't know why that is. Um, huh. And I don't know how to troubleshoot that, to be honest with you. I don't know why that would be that way. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. Let's do this. I'm obviously in the middle of the class, but I don't mind taking the call. I think at this point, you can try to troubleshoot that on your end if you'd like to. But other than that, you're gonna have to kind of watch the recording of the video, if you will. And I will follow up after this. I'll reach out to people at Zoom. They're usually pretty helpful. I've called them before, and they've walked me through some things, and as well as the college. But right now, yeah, I'm not a tech person. Sorry. Okay, thank you. Right. Okay, interesting. That was one of our classmates who she'll tune in, and she says she cannot get in for some reason. So that may be the case with many of you. I don't know why that is. I will follow up with Zoom because I actually sent the invitation, and it should work right now. So I do apologize for that. So anyway, we were talking about dualism and monoism, and like most Christians, uh, you purport to be dualist, thinking that. Actually, I'm sorry, we were talking about Descartes. And he went through a whole process to determine that he did exist. And in the end, he said, "I think, therefore I am." And then you've probably, even if you haven't read Descartes, you've probably heard that said before, and maybe not even known what it was. I heard it for years when I was a kid. I didn't know what it meant until I got started studying it. So basically, what he's saying is, since I do have thoughts of other things, I must exist. And that's a very simple way to put it, which may or may not resonate with you. And again, most Christians do believe that we are body and spirit. Not all Christians, though. There are many Christians, not the majority, but many nonetheless, believe that we are one. This is very similar to what Judaism believes. Judaism does not typically ascribe to dualism. When you look at some of the writings in the Old Testament, there is none of this. You die and you go to heaven. Um, I've heard. I'm no theologian, but I've heard many theologians speak on this topic from various denominations. And while they may agree or disagree that we are one or we are two, body and spirit, that there's pretty much consensus that the Jewish writings from the Old Testament did not adhere to this, never really considered this. It seems to be kind of a new thing. So there are a lot of good Christians out there who believe that, as the Jews believe, that, for instance, when you die, you die. You don't have a spirit that either goes to heaven or to hell or to purgatory. You're dead. And from a Christian standpoint, your body and your soul are like sleeping. If you're saved, if you will, for put it very simply, until Jesus returns, as the Book of Revelation says, and wakes you up and takes you to heaven. I again, there are different people here, different faiths and things like that. So this is not going to be that kind of religious discussion, but from a psychological standpoint, dualism and monoism is looked at psychologically. Is our mind actually separate from our brain? And it's a fascinating topic that we could probably spend the entire semester on. But it gets into some interesting things. And the more we learn about science, the more we can see how we can manipulate the brain, or see which parts of the brains are working for different things like memory, anxiety, stress, peace, if you will, or comfort, if you will. I think I mentioned memory, pleasure, as well as pain, and how we can also see. And again, I mentioned this many times. We know a lot about the brain now, but not nearly as much as we're going to learn. And we know a whole lot more than we did 25 years ago, which is a very short amount of time. We know volumes more about the brain and how it works. And a lot of things that we used to believe were correct have now been proven to be incorrect, if you will. So very fascinating topics. So I did want to touch on those two things. And this week we also talked about states of consciousness, which leads us into the dualism or monism debate or discussion, if you will. I don't like debate; it's kind of a strong word, discussion. So one of the things, and I alluded to this last week, that just bothered me that she wanted a password. I'm sorry about that. Let me just take a look here. There would be no. There's no password. Anyway, sorry about that. As I said, I mentioned last week, I alluded to it at least, that psychology is a very broad field. One person had asked me, and I think in a discussion or in the message board, what to just keep her informed on different things that she can do in psychology, or it might have been a gentleman, I don't know. And the thing is, there are so many things in psychology, either from counseling or training or teaching or testing, measuring, looking at social psychology, looking at family psychology, looking at organizational industrial psychology, sports psychology, grief psychology. So many different ways and avenues to go in with psychology, that it is a wide open field that is very necessary for many things. It has its hand in just about everything that's out there: business, education. There's even the psychology of religion, looking at how our religious institutions serve us, or how they could serve us better also. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. So this Psych 101 course touches on so many, not all of them, but so many of those things. But we can't possibly go that deep into any one of them, because we touch on so many different things. Even if we have an entire year, we have our course here, even if our course was extended for another 8 weeks, or 6 weeks, I should say, or another 12 weeks for that matter, we couldn't go very deep into many of these topics, because this is what they typically call a survey course that touches on the various things. We're talking about streams of consciousness now, monoism versus dualism. We're talking about attention. We're going to talk about testing and measurement as well. So this gives you a taste. And what I would suggest for each of you is to figure out that one thing that really sparks your interest in psychology, and especially if you're going to major in psychology, and pursue that along the way, whether it's social psychology, and which is sort of basically how individuals behave within groups, where sociology looks at the group behavior. Um, whether it's industrial psychology, organizational psychology, which that could probably one of the more lucrative fields in psychology is that, um, because that's where the money is. Counseling psychology, school psychology, various things like that. So with that, I don't know why. I'm going to find out. Maybe this is why people were not able to get in, because it's just me, and it's kind of hard to have. I was hoping we'd have people had committed to me this week that they'd chime in. So I kind of wanted to have an interactive session and hear from each of you. So that's what I'd kind of prepared for. But since people are not able to get in for some reason, which I'm going to find out about, we're going to go ahead and end it now, so I can go ahead and get on the phone with the people from Zoom and see what's going on. So with that, I will say that we'll go with, since last week I asked you to prove you were here by telling me the best way to get in touch with me is through the message tab. I'm going to go with start in the beginning, Genesis 1:1. That'll be our scripture, which is a very powerful scripture, believe it or not. I believe so. Genesis 1:1. If you want to get your credit for being, or at least not being in the Zoom class live, but get credit for watching the recording and tuning in, as I say, it's Genesis 1:1. So you'll send that to me in the message tab, and then at that point, I will give you your points for being here. So keep up the good work, keep the good discussions coming, and I will see you in the course room.